Okay. I was just ready to go. I was ready to go on this never-ending story.
This story is just an infinite runaway train that has no end in sight.
Because the story is America is now on its third Surgeon General nominee for this administration.
Which is usually not how this works.
At this point, it feels like speed dating public health officials.
And honestly, Surgeon General used to be one of these positions no one really thought about. Unless, you see the really gross photos on the cigarette packets.
Started with the warning labels, recently it's become the photos.
Now the Surgeon General has become this symbolic battleground for vaccines, wellness culture, MAHA, public trust, and who really gets to be the face of medicine in America.
So let's get into it.
Forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Rolling Forward podcast. I'm Dr. Stephanie Rowland.
I'm Dr. Alicia Rowland.
I'm a psychiatrist.
And I'm a pediatric emergency physician.
We're clinicians, researchers, sisters, and on the weekends, podcasters.
We started this podcast as a way to help demystify health news and break down common parenting and public health questions because lately it feels like every week there's another headline that makes everyone collectively say, wait, what's happening?
Record scratch.
Wait, what?
So today we're going to cover what the Surgeon General actually does, why we're on the third nominee for this administration, who the current nominee, Dr. Nicole Saphier, actually is, why she might be easier to confirm than Dr. Casey Means, and then the larger fight about what's happening over medicine, wellness, and public trust.
So let's get started.
Forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
All right, Alicia, let's go real basic. What even is the Surgeon General?
The Surgeon General is often called the nation's doctor. They don't make laws. They don't control the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They don't run the Food and Drug Administration, but they are enormously important public health communicators.
The Surgeon General is the person who's going to issue advisories about smoking or vaping, loneliness, mental health, vaccine, any public health crises that might come up.
The Surgeon General's real power is communication and public trust,
which helps explain why this position suddenly means so much politically.
Because if public health is increasingly happening through media, podcasts, social media, and public messaging, then the Surgeon General is basically the federal government's chief health communicator.
Which is a really different job than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So, Stephanie, how did we get here to nominee number 3?
So, initially, President Trump nominated Dr. Jeanette Nesheiwat. She is a physician and a former Fox News contributor. You'll see, these 3 nominees, they lean heavy on Fox News. But her nomination was later withdrawn when there was a lot of criticism from parts of the MAHA movement and some questions surrounding her background.
Then came Dr. Casey Means,
who we discussed in a prior episode. But if you missed that episode, who is Dr. Casey Means?
She's a Stanford-trained physician who became a wellness entrepreneur, influencer, author, and prominent ally of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
And some of her messaging is honestly pretty mainstream. I would say a lot of physicians would agree with her on core themes surrounding reducing ultra-processed foods, exercising more, reducing environmental exposures. These are not fringe concepts.
But things became more complicated, and there were a lot of concerns that were raised about some of her vaccine-related comments, her wellness industry conflicts of interest, which we will come back to over and over again. Some promotional of functional medicine concepts. She had lots of comments about raw milk, and really the fact that she never completed residency training and no longer actively practiced medicine.
And these concerns became a major issue, especially her comments around vaccines. And Senator Bill Cassidy, who himself is a physician and leads the committee that vets nominees, repeatedly pressed her in her confirmation hearing about her prior comments involving vaccines and autism.
Her nomination was stalled, a vote was never scheduled, and that now brings us to nominee number 3.
Nicole Saphier. So, Alicia, who exactly is Dr. Nicole Saphier?
She is a board-certified radiologist specializing in breast imaging, and at the time of her nomination, she was serving as the director of breast imaging at Memorial Sloan Kettering Monmouth in New Jersey.
Which is a pretty traditional medical background compared with some of the recent nominees that we've discussed.
Very traditional. She attended Ross University School of Medicine. She started and completed her residency training.
Woo!
She completed a breast imaging fellowship at the Mayo Clinic. She then became board certified, and she spent much of her career focused on breast cancer screening and early detection.
And she has a pretty compelling personal story, too. She became a mother as a teenager, and she's spoken publicly about balancing motherhood, medical training, and building a career in medicine. And that experience became part of her public identity long before politics entered the picture.
Because if you've heard of Dr. Nicole Saphier, it's probably because you know her from television.
Definitely.
For years, she's been one of Fox News' primary physician contributors. She's written books, she's hosted a podcast, and she spent years translating medical topics for a general audience.
So we're seeing the Fox News contributor come back, but this is sounding a bit more in line with the modern Surgeon General job description.
One reason this nomination makes sense politically is that the public health communication no longer happens through journal articles and press conferences. It happens through these platforms: television, podcasts, social media, YouTube, and personalities people already trust.
And if confirmed, she would actually be the first radiologist ever to serve as Surgeon General.
Which is fascinating because people often assume that the Surgeon General needs to either be a Surgeon General, or come from more of a primary care public health background.
But historically, we've actually had Surgeon Generals from a wide range of specialties. And the real question with Surgeon General isn't about specialty, it's whether the person can communicate effectively and maintain public trust.
So, what does Dr. Nicole Saphier actually believe? What are some of her actual health positions?
This is where we're going to get into some nuanced. During COVID, Dr. Saphier generally supported vaccines, particularly for high-risk groups. But she also criticized prolonged school closures, some mandates, and certain aspects of the pandemic response.
Which kind of puts her in a little bit of a different category than the more overt anti-vaccine voice that we've seen in MAHA.
Exactly. Many people view her as occupying a middle ground between traditional academic medicine and the broader MAHA movement.
She's also published a few books.
But critics still have concerns.
Definitely.
Some point to her close alignment with conservative media. Others point to her public comments regarding gender-affirming care for minors. And some have raised concerns about her involvement in the wellness and supplement industry. And that might sound familiar because this was also a concern with Dr. Oz and Dr. Casey Means. There's this close tie with the supplement industry. Close financial ties.
Let's talk about what that means because people hear supplement, conflict of interest, and may not really know what that means.
With the supplement conflict of interest, what we're seeing is that people, they have financial stakes in companies that sell supplements.
The concern is not that physicians are involved in companies or that the physicians are owning their own business. The concern is that public health officials are expected to evaluate evidence objectively, while there are also parts of boards, parts of companies that profit from selling certain health products.
And you can easily imagine those incentives coming into conflict. When you have an ownership stake in this supplement company that's selling X, and then you have a platform where you can start recommending X, that money is very quickly going to flow back to you.
And there's also this broader concern that public health leadership, they're being increasingly selected for media influence. And a lot of these platforms have been built on selling supplements.
And the algorithms aren't choosing the best health messaging, the most true health messaging. As we've described in prior episodes, these algorithms are choosing messages that are more extreme and more catchy. And this becomes complicated because when we think about the Surgeon General, communication generally matters. Yet some of these individuals have large social media platforms not for sharing evidence-based views, but for sharing more extreme views that get picked up by algorithms and amplified.
Which is why TikTok influencers are getting millions of views explaining health concepts totally wrong.
Because our communications ecosystem has fundamentally changed. So the skills that get you that large platform, they're not necessarily the same skills that are going to make you a good Surgeon General.
One interesting thing to me is that Dr. Nicole Saphier almost feels like a compromise candidate. We struck out twice and let's settle.
As we've said, she is positioned between traditional academic medicine and this newer Maha wellness media ecosystem. She's also conservative enough to appeal to the administration it's based, while being medically conventional enough, having graduated medical school, completed residency, and gotten a license to practice medicine, that many Republicans see her as easier to confirm than some other candidates.
But honestly, this entire process feels bigger than just 1, 2 nominees.
This is really about who does America trust for health information now? Historically, public health authority came from government agencies, medical schools, public health institutions, and professional organizations.
And now, increasingly, it comes from podcasts and influencers, your Substack, YouTube, wellness brands.
And people are frustrated. And bringing this back to parents, why should families care who the Surgeon General is?
Because the Surgeon General is shaping public health messaging in America, and that provides guidance on things like vaccines, outbreak response, mental health campaigns, smoking and vaping prevention. The Surgeon General is often the person translating complicated science into language that people can understand.
And whether people trust that messenger matters enormously, especially right now. So this position feels more important than ever. I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Alicia, does the Surgeon General control vaccines?
They don't. The Surgeon General is primarily a communicator and an advisor. They are not the ones deciding the vaccine schedule.
Why was Dr. Casey Means controversial?
There were a lot of concerns about her comments about vaccines, but more so about her conflicts of interest with the wellness industry and some lack of traditional clinical practice experience.
And why might Dr. Nicole Saphier be easier to confirm?
She's an actively practicing physician with more traditional credentials, and she has some broader Republican support.
And what is this fight over this position really about?
It's not about one person. It's not about this doctor versus that doctor. It's really about who gets to define public health expertise in America right now.
So in closing, it sounds like the takeaway here is not just who's the next Surgeon General. Because if this nomination moves forward towards a confirmation hearing and a vote, we'll tell you more about Dr. Nicole Saphier. But right now, the conversation is really about who do Americans trust when it comes to health.
Whether Dr. Nicole Saphier ultimately becomes Surgeon General matters less than what her nomination represents. The question isn't really who gets the job. It's whether Americans still trust traditional medical institutions or whether that trust has shifted towards Fox News, physician personalities.
Influencers, alternative health voices.
And that debate isn't going away anytime soon.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
So thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Rolling Forward podcast.
I'm Dr. Alicia Rowland.
I'm Dr. Stephanie Rowland.
If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find our show.
And you can find us on social media and email us questions or episode ideas at rollinforwardshow@gmail.com. That's ROLIN @gmail.com.
And we'll see you next week.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Marvel, I'm going to ask you a question.
What? I am a powder woman.
You are an empowered woman. That's right. And who do you think should be Surgeon General?
Mommy.
Your mommy should be Surgeon General? I mean, she is a doctor.
And then my mommy says that you can sit a folks of the day there, folks. I am a Howard University.
Where did you graduate from?
Howard University.